What's up YouTube, this is Slaan here from Northern Lan, and this is Project Slaanhatten version 0.5.2 Terraforming edition for Alpha 15. And it's been, I think Santa Claus has been, we've had the new year, it's been ages. I think November was when I released the last version of the Terraforming, and rather than change the name, as you can see from the map, a massive amount of focus is still going into sort of tidying up the area that I've laid out. And at first glimpse it looks like most of it's now full, but there's a lot of stuff that's really unfinished, which we'll go through in just a second, because I've got absolutely loads of stuff that I've been working on since you've last seen anything. I've done a couple of streams on the live server playthrough that we've been doing at the minute, so that's taken up quite a bit of time, but I have been building non-stop in between, and I've got, like I say, loads of stuff to show you. So while we're quickly looking at the map, the overview of this edition will be this little area up here, more Diazville style residential with the stucco housing. The football stadium is now a permanent part of the hub. Now performance up in this area here, which it's where the project was born and where I first started with the concept idea. So these initial buildings have been here since Alpha 12, and they've been through, I think, two quite big block ID changes where beds and rotations were crazy, and I was just sick to death of people saying, Slaan, why are the beds poking through the wall still? And it didn't matter how many I went in and fixed, because of the way that I had abused Lasman's brownstone houses. There was just beds all over the place that were all just looking out of place, and I purged the whole lot. And I've got a better idea for a nicer area with the brownstone houses, and the housing that I've went with is all of the abandoned houses that the front pimps made, and it's looks a little bit more posher. There's quite a variance in different sizes and tiers, and some of them have quite big basements which are flooded. The loot's not huge, but it's, for the amount of buildings that's in there, it's still quite plentiful, and it's something that's visually quite different to the usual housing in residential areas that we've got set up elsewhere. The school is seeing a minor little update, and we'll have a brief look at that. We've got the Slaanhatten hill, which has been the main backdrop wallpaper of my YouTube channel since the beginning, and eventually I've found a decent place to dump the prefab in. I made this back in Alpha 12, and I'm glad that I've eventually got somewhere to put it down, and as cheesy as it does look quite funky. And obviously the highway, which you can see here, is going to turn 90 degrees in a perfectly realistic corner and start shooting off towards the west. River area, we added the hotel over here and the dock area down here. I'm saying the old industrial area, what was the new industrial area in the last update, is still quite empty. There's a couple more prefabs down there, some sheds. The first iteration of the cargo ships in there. I've filled out a lot of the opposite side of the docks and cleaned this bit of the shoreline up. The whole area now looks really cool, like a proper little industrial hub, and I think you're going to love it, especially when it starts getting finished off and I start filling some of these containers with more loot and things like that. And the most recent thing that I've been working on, which is the Alcatraz Island idea, which I've been chiming on about since, I don't know, Alpha 13 or something like that. It was an idea that I had very early on, and we've had like 3 decent, quite big prison prefabs, and I ended up rolling out with Limadors, which we've had it on the live server a couple of times now, and it's a bit heavy on some forms of loot, but I can always trim that down. So enough blabbing, and we'll quickly go through all of these new areas. So this is stuff that we've all seen before. The layout is a little bit less copy and paste, and there's still garages and things like that to go in here, but these little residential areas are good fillers, I think. You know, they're a little bit easier on the frames per second as well. It's not so many lights and like big massive loot filled buildings and stuff like that. Yet you can still make some quite dense areas, and we've still got little streets in between the buildings, and by the time the garages and the trees and other sort of details go in, The areas as a whole I think look quite cool, and they all fit together with the other things. The stadium, I've had this in the live server a couple of times now, and it looks very much like an American sort of high school stadium, and you know, we just so happen to have a big gigantic school complex over here. So it's in it. Our local players will be like wondering, thinking, you know, it looks kind of the same but different because it's shifted along a few hundred meters, but it's in roughly the same place that we'd be used to, and obviously the roads and all that are a lot more tidier. Uh, this street was formerly Las Manhausen, as was this one, and it had the what was it? The suspended train track, the like the tram track. Sorry, that was a bit raised up in between the buildings. And I, I, I do intend to do a subway, and I can't really plan something like that until most of my streets and stuff are all set in stone. There we go. We can just see where a little piece of that's left. So this, it was a bit ambitious to start a track off at the beginning where I did, without any sort of thought about how big the city's going to be and what sort of limitations I'm going to have because of other features like giant rivers and bridges and sewer tunnels and that sort of thing. So I've left that little stump in there mainly because I forgot about it, but it is a nice little reminder of what used to be there. But these houses in general, the I quite like the streets that they make and the area as a whole, especially when you're on view distance 12, which I'm not at the minute, and you pan it around. It, you know, it looks really cool, and I think these are in between the stucco houses and the odd mansion. You know, this is where the big guys live, and they're not so big guys, and a little bit more well off than average Joes kind of live in these buildings, I suppose. And I suppose we'll just roll straight onto the Slaanhatten hill. Now this side is still quite baldy. The tunnel itself on the highway is still largely empty. Like I say, I've got like 27 different things that I'm doing all at the same time, and I just fly different like between them, and then all of a sudden I'll pick up something else and boosh, start rolling out some other part of the city. So it's quite a mess and all over the place, this update, but in terms of content, most new areas now have some form of loot and are decorated mostly, so the area as a whole is so much better. And it's been used and abused a couple of times on our live server now, so lessons have been learned. But things like this, obviously, I'm just copying San Andreas GTA 5, the Hollywood Hills style sort of thing. It's little details that exist in the real world that, although they're greatly exaggerated in a not so realistic fashion, they're just feeding at the idea that Slaanhatten is a dense, big sort of proper city. It's not one of these little grid things. It has all the amenities. It has, I don't know if we can house 10,000 bodies yet and officially declare it a city, but by the time it's filled out, that's the ambition. And 10,000 people live here, then I can officially call it a proper city. Now this is all old stuff. I need to nip down. Yeah, I will talk a little bit about these. So this little street is probably looking a lot different, and I can hear the size already for the people on the live server. But previously there was 5 buildings that are really nice, awesome little houses, and I will make another estate with them. But what I didn't realise is that there's like 4 munition boxes in every single one, and this street on the old version has like 5, I think, altogether. So it was just too much crazy loot to have in one little spot. So these, I don't know if I'll roll out with more of these little cheapy houses here. I mean, you're not going to build a mansion next to a fucking sewer, so this is just how it's going to be. The highway here. Now this tunnel on the road as well is quite rough. I think when I come up with a pattern for either this one or the northern hill that I've just shown you, I'll copy and paste it into the tunnel that didn't get it. It's stronger. It shouldn't collapse now. Shouldn't is quite a loose term to use, but the more I look at this building, the more it just doesn't seem right that a hotel would be connected on what would probably be quite a busy part of the highway. You know, there's no other on-off ramps nearby. You would just be speeding along at 70 miles an hour. You know, brakes on, somebody wants to pull into the hotel. But it looks quite funky when you look at it from this side. And then you start to see, you know, maybe we'll get a bit of a stairwell going down, and it's almost like a holiday brochure. You know, this is the hotel's private little beach. So, I don't know, it'll probably stay, because something's better than nothing, and maybe I'll bash it to bits and tidy it up at another point. Days End Suites, this is where I made my base on the live server. And this hill is mostly made out of dirt, and the zombies will chew it to pieces, and the players will blow it to pieces and dig it to pieces very quickly, so you have been warned. It still looks weird when I fly past here and just see all this hill. There's pictures in one of my blogs, like you'll see on the Northern Land site, of the current state of the building. It's not pretty. So I'm still not, I want some kind of ferry landing here, and I did promise one of my donators, Paul Scan, that I would honour him. And the original idea was to make a custom trader on a boat and have it sitting around this area, but I'm not so sure a trader really does him justice. I think he's probably going to be better off made as an NPC boss bandit or something like that. So you're not forgotten about, Paul. I will definitely honour you somehow. I think the donations, although I don't ask for anything, it still baffles us. I think it's awesome that people actually do things like that. I will eventually buy a decent microphone. That will be my gift to you guys. But this area as a whole, it's very pretty on the eyes, or a lot prettier on the eyes, and it's typically something that you won't have ever seen the likes of in 7 days. The boat on the live server that we have running at the minute is very unstable, and most of it actually collapsed because there was layers missing beneath the surface. But in this version, so I mean, I'll get some of the cargo containers on here. Maybe it's filled with cars. It's got a little bit of ore storage, and the idea is these are just more storage areas. There's iron and other materials buried amongst some of the destroyed stone. Large empty area that I'm still not sure what to do with, and the sort of the basic engine-y style room consoles that you can break down with the air wrench. Stainless steel. I have a full crew area for about 14 bodies. Someone told us that 2 lockers in a medicine cabinet in that many rooms altogether was a bit overpowered, and you know, I suppose it is, but the loot XMLs can be adjusted accordingly, I think, to account for the amount of containers in the city. I know that when we set up the live server now, I look more to the loot XMLs than what I do the actual loot settings themselves, because I like the idea of a lot of things to loot, a lot of reasons to explore. But obviously, you don't want people to gear up too fast. But this is just a basic crew area. There is a little ammunition room somewhere, and I'm not sure where. This is going to be the bridge, mess hall. So I mean, I've tried things where like that have made sense, that I've been able to roll with, because the idea has been there. I've done things that I wasn't sort of like 100% set in stone with. I just left. The city covers enough area for us to be able to say it is. Look at, I'm just not going to finish everything as soon as I start it. But now we have on the western side of the industrial area the new little Marina style thing. And to be honest, I think that little ranger house looks way better floating over water than it is in the wilderness. We've got another trader in there. I'll come back to the traders in a minute though, because that's quite an important little thing to mention. But this is just making good use of the space, you know, warehouses and boats, cargo on and offloading, that sort of thing. And then obviously this area here, I was just deciding how I wanted to connect to the prisons island. So it's, as Big C kindly pointed out when I was doing a little tour demo, and he said, "Oh, how do those bridges not collapse?" And you know, they're made with steel, they're a few layers thick, so you can actually ride your bike over them. Basic little checkpoint sort of thing. Because I mean, I don't know if it's going to be like modern day Alcatraz, where it used to be a prison, now it's a tourist kind of thing, or if this, for the city law, is actually a prison. But no, the bridge doesn't collapse unless you break a block. As soon as you break one of those blocks, in particular in this area, then it's gone. It's in the water straight away. Prison's in, fully functional. It's actually part of the prefab grid, not an individual prefab, so it'll suffer from less zombies. I'm still not sure how to tackle that in the city just yet. But I'm loving these little beaches and stuff now. And if we just zoom in, it's the area as a whole is a lot easier on the eye, and all these little details I think are starting to have an effect now that you've got a larger group of them sorted together. You know, you can trace the path of the river through, and yes, that boat could get in and out of there. Honest. But we've done it in almost 20 minutes. I think that's most of the new things skimmed over. There's a lot more bug fixes and things that I've probably missed, but like I said at the beginning, it's been that long since I've actually released things. I thought, right, I just need to push out what I've got so that people can start playing in it and you know, giving us feedback, because there's no point in me having it sitting here collecting dust, because I mean, our live server gets the latest working version that I have, so we're slightly ahead of the last official release, but even compared to what we're running with, it's bare. And hopefully the next time, because I don't know if you've kind of noticed, but we've started to gradually go around the map and fill the area out, and the next problem is going to be this area here, because this is very early days material that I kind of started with just after the concept idea. I promise this wall has to go. So, just to quickly go over the traders, because I have 3 in the city now. 2 of them are custom traders, 1 of them is just a vanilla one. Now, what I've done is, rather than add them to the prefab grid like I've sort of done with the rest of the buildings in the city, they are added at the very bottom of the hub layout code, and previously on the live server I used that little bit there to fill up the empty spaces with the bigger prefabs. So we'll usually set down the Piquero slum and the Walking Dead prison. We went with Stallion's Dens, Racetrack and Limidor's prison, just littered around the outside of the city in the empty areas. Whereas the traders that I have are spawned in just like that, so there's areas cleared out within the city designed to have those traders in there, and it means they retain their own individual XML file, and all of the little details like the NPC and the claim protection and all that sort of shit is just copy pasted from the vanilla prefab. So for the first time since its conception, there is now 2 prefabs in the prefabs folder that aren't city sections. So just remember, when you copy paste, and you are taking everything, including those. So I think that's pretty much it, and I'm itching to get back building. So I'll say a big thank you to everybody who subscribed. We're now up to 85, which is absolutely unreal. And I just caught my first ever playthrough series where there was another French channel. Actually, I couldn't understand understand a word that was being said, but I recognised the buildings, and I think it's nice that people are starting to be able to see it as something that they can use and play in. So a big thank you for everybody who's liked and shared and commented and dropped feedback back on the forums. It's massively important to hear what you think about it. I do listen to the feedback and things like purging a lot of the buildings in the northeast for performance, which was a common complaint in that area. I do look at these things in the long term, because at the end of the day I build this primarily for multiplayer, PvP multiplayer, and our players have a blast every time, blowing the place to pieces and running around stalking people at the traders and all sorts of stuff. And it's the city that 7 days to it's the city that 7 days to die deserves. Lots of D's. But on that note, thank you very much for watching, and please like, comment and subscribe, and hopefully I'll speak to you very very soon, and we should see the northwest area tidied up to the same sort of level that we've seen in the other areas here. So for now, that's Slaan checking out at 21 minutes, a new personal record for a release video.